Have you ever wondered where the really smart money is going? I'm not talking about the big headline stocks that everybody already knows about. No, I'm talking about those under-the-radar bets that might just signal the next big move in the market. Well, today, we're putting on our detective hats. We're going to follow the money trail left by some of Wall Street's heaviest hitters to see exactly how they're playing the boom in AI and biotech.
I mean, just think about that for a second. What if you had a map that showed you the exact moves of legendary investors? It sounds impossible, right? But here's the thing. Thanks to public filings, we kinda do. And that's our starting point for this whole investigation.
So our investigation kicks off with a group that's often called the super investors. And that's not just some cool-sounding name. It actually describes a very specific class of fund managers, the ones who have almost unbelievable long-term track records. We're talking about the real titans, the names you see right here. Warren Buffett, Bill Ackman, Carl Icahn. These are the investors whose moves don't just make headlines. They can literally shift entire markets. And because of regulations, they have to report their big moves every quarter. That gives us an incredibly powerful, high-level map of where the smartest money is flowing.
All right, so where did these giants actually park their capital last quarter? Let's peel back the curtain and take a look at the data. This is where the first major clues really start to pop up.
Okay, just take a look at this list of their top buys. You see the pattern here? It's almost completely dominated by technology and artificial intelligence leaders. This isn't just a random collection of stocks. It's a really clear statement from the world's best investors about where they think the future is headed.
I mean, you really just can't ignore it. The super investors are loading up on the core infrastructure, the platforms that are powering this entire AI revolution. And this is our first major clue. It's the big macro trend.
And this brings us to the next step of our investigation, which is where things get really interesting. See, the big bets on tech giants are a crucial starting point, but they're often just the tip of the iceberg. To find more targeted ideas, ones with potentially explosive growth, we need to zoom in and look for a different kind of signal. So now we pivot. We're shifting our focus from what this huge funds are buying to what corporate insiders are doing with their own money. We're talking about the people who know these companies better than anyone. Because when a CEO or top exec buys their company stock with their own cash, well, that's a signal of conviction you just can't ignore. And as we sift through the recent filings, two names just immediately jump out, and they're both in that under $20 high-growth category. We've got the Fintech disruptor SoFi Technologies and a really fascinating biotech company called AbCellera Biologics. Let's just focus on that SoFi buy for a second. On March 2nd, a single insider dropped over $1 million of their own money at just under $18 a share. I mean, that's not some small symbolic purchase. That is a massive personal bet on where they think that company is going. Now, look at AbCellera. It's not just one person buying here. We're seeing multiple insiders all buying up shares around that $3.50 mark. This is something called cluster buying, and it often signals a shared belief inside the company that their stock is seriously undervalued. So here's the crucial point. These people have the most intimate, day-to-day knowledge of their company's operations, its challenges, and its opportunities. When they decide to put their own money on the line like this, it's a signal that every single investor should probably pay attention to. Okay, now remember that AbCellera buy? Well, it wasn't random. It connects directly back to that huge AI trend we saw with the super investors, but in a much more specific and frankly potentially explosive way. And this right here is where all the pieces of the puzzles start to click together. Expert analysis, like this piece from The Motley Fool, has specifically pointed to AI biotech as a key area for investors, right alongside those data center giants like NVIDIA and Microsoft that we saw the super investors buying. So what in the world is AI biotech? Well, think of it as the fusion of two absolutely revolutionary fields. Companies in this space are using machine learning to discover new drugs and therapies way faster and more efficiently than was ever thought possible. All of a sudden, that cluster of insider buying at an AI-driven company like AbCellera starts to look even more significant, doesn't it? Okay, so we've seen the billionaire buys, we've seen the insider conviction, and we've got the expert analysis. But there's one more piece to this puzzle. What does the broader investing community think? What's the narrative on the street? So let's circle back to SoFi for just a moment. The stock recently took a hit after some short-term bad news. It didn't get included in the S&P 500 index like some had hoped. But the reaction from retail investors was, well, it was fascinating. As you can see from this sentiment, they were defiant, basically arguing that the market was punishing the stock for all the wrong reasons.
And this is just a perfect example of a classic conflict in the market, right? You have short-term news versus long-term conviction. And when you see that kind of conviction being shared by both the company insiders and a vocal group of retail investors, especially in the face of negative headlines, that itself becomes a very, very powerful signal. So what we've just done is follow a trail of breadcrumbs, right? We went from the biggest investors on the planet all the way down to individual company insiders and even retail sentiment. Let's just step back for a second and put the method we used into a simple, repeatable framework. Here's the framework we just walked through, broken down into 4 pretty simple steps. Number 1, you start macro with the super investors to spot the big themes. 2, you zoom in on the insider signals to pinpoint specific companies. 3, you validate the whole idea with expert analysis. And finally, 4, you check the public's sentiment to really understand the current story. You know, this quote from the investing legend Peter Lynch really captures the spirit of this whole approach. It's not about chasing the latest hype. It's about doing the detective work, finding those signals of real value, and then having the conviction to act on them, especially when everyone else is distracted by the short-term noise. And that's really the key takeaway here. We didn't just give you a couple of stock ideas, we gave you a framework. We gave you a method for doing your own investigation. So the only question left is, now that you have it, what signals will you look for next?